dudes and dudettes, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Be Kind and Rewind podcast, a podcast chock full of everything that is nostalgic about the 80s, 90s, and more. This episode, we're busting out the haunted mask, checking into Camp Nightmare while fleeing from the Blob That Ate Everyone to talk about our favorite 90s spooky book series, Goosebumps, with Zack from Nightmare Fear Street podcast. So, welcome, Zack.
Hey everyone, I'm happy to be on the show, and everyone needs to stay spooky.
Of course, this is going to be an extra spooky podcast. We've kind of kept that as a streak so far. We had a spooky podcast last week, but we're going to have another one this week. This one's a little more tame. Last week was more paranormal investigations. This one's more getting into our childhood spookiness. So, Zack, before we get into everything that is Goosebumps, tell us about you and your podcast, Nightmare Fear Street, and how you guys got into R.L. Stine and Goosebumps and everything that it is.
Well, Nightmare on Fear Street started because I just had mounds and mounds of Goosebumps books. And me and my friend Meg, we decided, hey, let's make a Spooky Dukes podcast all about Goosebumps. But when we started to really conceive the idea, there are a lot of other Goosebumps related podcasts out there. So we decided, why not make it like an R.L. Stine type of podcast and get the whole like circle? Because R.L. Stine writes a lot of books that aren't Goosebumps. He actually, both Goosebumps was going on, and he had more of like a teen audience as well, and that would be Fear Street. So we try to mix the two, as well as we try to review Goosebumps knockoff books. So any books that are like teen horror that were made after 1994, because that's when Goosebumps truly exploded. And there's a lot of them, and a lot of them are shameless ripoffs of R.L. Stine books. So we just found this great, fun way and synergy, and that's what made it fun, because I'm a huge fan of horror. I go to horror conventions. I used to work for a movie company, as well as, you know, just being a huge fan, same as with Meg, and how we can just talk about the most obscure movies ever and somehow make it fit into our episodes about mummies, vampires, and everything of the unknown.
Well, with 62 books out there for the Goosebumps series, you guys have plenty of material for your podcast and for your episodes.
Yes. That's only the 62 of the original. There's over hundreds of Goosebumps books.
Yeah, exactly. You guys do the spin-offs. You do all the other ones that R.L. Stine's done. So you got plenty of stuff to do. So it looks like you're in for the long haul at this point in time, huh? So how many books or how many episodes are you in at this point?
So currently, we do bonus episodes. We just started soon. So we have a total of about 17 episodes currently. A lot of them, they're under about an hour, just because, you know, people might be doing stuff. So we try to keep at the 45-minute to an hour mark if it gets interesting.
Oh yeah, there's a tension, that short tension span. We gotta. It's a tough window to stay within. It's 45 minutes to an hour. If anything over an hour, you might be pushing your luck.
Much like a Goosebumps book, because they're usually about 133 pages at most.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool then. I've checked out a few episodes so far. Definitely digging them. We'll get into a little more specifically one of the episodes here in just a little bit. But before we get into that, I want to just kind of give everybody who's listening who's not too familiar with Goosebumps. Of course, you and I are very familiar with Goosebumps, but for those who are not familiar, just get a little history about it. Goosebumps is horror fiction book series by the by the author R.L. Stine from 1992 to 97. There were 62 books in that specific series. Like Zack was saying, there's plenty more to go check out. But the series was super popular among kids in the early to mid 90s. Myself, my friends, everybody. You go to a friend's house and you just compare the stacks of books that they have, and if they had the one you didn't, you'd read it as soon as you could. And then they also had, they had to follow up with the TV series and into a spin-off series, and then into a movie that came out recently, which we'll get into both of those as well. So Zack, for you personally, for Goosebumps, what got you into the books? Was it the books? Did you see the series? Did you happen to be at a friend's house and see the books? What got you into it?
Well, surprisingly, the first time I got introduced to the series was actually my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Torres. She had a bunch of the books in her classroom, and instead of picking like a book for a book report, same as like Harry Potter, actually Twilight wasn't even out yet, so Harry Potter, Magic Tree House or anything. I'm like, I'll just do Spooky Dukes, Goosebumps, because I've always loved horror related stuff. The earliest movie that I remember seeing in theaters was Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, and ever since then it has just gone downhill for me. So I really got introduced from a teacher, Mrs. Torres, and ever since then I would go to used bookstores and pick up as many as I could because I was born 1995, so I was not really into Goosebumps when I was a baby, but once I got to like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's when like my obsession really started. And I'd go to bookstores because used to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and all you could do there really is read. Or this is before Breaking Bad, so nothing exciting happened. So
Read or be hot, one of the two.
yeah, or
Yeah.
melt because 30-year-olds look like 80-year-olds, and it's fun.
It's
Or
called weathered skin. They would tell you weathered.
weathered skin, and then I would just go down to Santa Fe, and everyone just looks like George R. R. Martin.
That's true. They got the burly. They got the burly beards. They got the little hats and all. Yep, yep. I got you.
Yep,
I can feel
still
that.
waiting to
So
finish their book series,
yeah,
even though
everyone
they're
just
doing
keeps
everything
asking him.
else.
He's like, I'm not that guy, but I'll finish the book, I guess, if I need to. No, yeah, I definitely understand. Well, that's cool that a teacher got you into the book series, and like you said, you're 95, mid 90s baby. I'm a mid 80s baby from
Oh,
84, so we got a little about a 10 11 year gap. Which when 92 to 97, I was like that prime demographic. I was like, 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. And what got me into it was I would see friends reading the books at school, but the thing was those covers. It was those
those Tim Jacobus covers.
yes, those covers would just kind of get you intrigued, kind of like a movie poster or a VHS case that had the cool cover that caught your eye. You're like, I gotta see what's going on there. And I, had a friend borrow his book, and I read the first one. I can't remember what. I think it was A Haunted Mask was the first one I read, and it was just like I was like, I gotta have more of these. The covers and the story was cool, so it just kind of snowballed from there. And then the TV series came out not long after that because I was kind of, I guess, a little late to the game, a couple years late, but um, it was
That's
definitely.
fine. They played reruns all the
Oh
time.
yes, of course, of course. There wasn't short on the Fox Kids on those reruns of the Goosebumps. So it was definitely just kind of the covers that got me. So moving on to actually one thing I wanted to ask was what was your favorite cover of all the books that you had or of all the Goosebumps books?
So my favorite cover would have to actually be Calling All Creeps. I feel like
Ooh.
that's the one with all the lizard kids,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what it is
Is it the
about.
phone booth one? Is that the
Yeah,
one?
the phone booth one.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
always like struck a chord with me just because it's like this is weird, and I'm may a low key love conspiracy theories. So like lizard people and stuff are like some of the funniest things out there. Other than that, my other favorite Goosebumps cover has to be the Blob That Ate Everyone, just because it is just a super horrifying cover,
Of course. No,
and it's one of the greatest covers out there. And also, the main character is named Zack.
what goes hand in hand, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say mine was the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, just because that was one of the first ones that caught my eye. Just being like, "Hey, what it intrigued me on what the story even meant, like, because you couldn't tell from the story or from the cover exactly what was going to go on in the story. So it's like it caught your attention and it caught your curiosity. So the Abominable Snowman, Pasadena, and then I guess another one that I liked was the Piano Lessons Can Be
Oh,
Murder.
oh yes, the one just the
Just the
hands.
hands, because I remember watching that episode and that episode being pretty cool too, and being super creepy. So this kind of goes two and two together. So those are two that I definitely enjoyed. Well, I guess out of those two, what was the first book that you owned too? The Goosebumps books.
So the first book that I owned, like personally, that I spent my allowance on was The Cuckoo Clock of Doom,
Hmm.
and this is one of the oldest books that I own that I bought personally. Uh, Other than that, after that, I started buying Series of Unfortunate Events, and I kept going from there. But my primary focus at that time was Goosebumps books.
What out of I guess out of all the ones that you had, which one was like the scariest that kept you up all night?
The weird thing though for me is that I don't get scared with Goosebumps even as a little kid, just because I gotten desensitized at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that scares me the most, and I've said it on the show, is I actually have a very bad phobia of bees. So
Oh,
I can't
okay.
even look at the cover for Why I'm Afraid of Bees.
That's
Because
understandable.
I hate those things. They
You
just need to be purged.
you don't want to be end up like Macaulay Culkin in My Girl too, or I think of the My Girl. I can't remember which one it was where he gets fatally wounded by all those bees.
No, I was thinking more like Wicker Man.
Oh yeah,
Not the
oh, not the
bees!
bees,
Ah,
not
they're in
the
my eyes.
bees. Oh, the best and underrated Nicolas Cage performance in a while. Uh,
Ironically, when I was working in my high school, was doing AV news team. We did a whole episode all about the Wicker Man, and I
it
was surprised we got away with it because we were like getting into the cults. This was right when The Following was like super popular,
it
so I was
deserves some
surprised.
research.
It was really funny.
Yeah, it that movie. If anybody hasn't seen it,
If I were to
yeah,
recommend it, if
yeah,
I were to recommend The Wicker Man, I'd recommend the original version with Christopher Lee,
okay.
not Nicolas Cage one because it is a masterpiece of horror movie, the original Wicker Man, and then you just watch the dollar store discount version that is Nicolas Cage. It's entertaining, but it's also supposed to be like a thought-provoking movie. But it's awful and Nicolas Cage, but that's just Nicolas Cage. I love him.
I think that was the thought, but didn't come across like they wanted or intended. So hopefully not. But yeah, you said the bees. It was one that will give you the nightmares. Mine was Phantom of the Opera because at the time, not for the book, but the TV series had the episode come out, and during that time I was in fifth grade, and before school we had to sit in this giant auditorium that I swear to God looked exactly like the TV one.
Oh, the
Um,
Spooky Dukes Auditorium.
yeah, and so I just like which kept thinking there's a phantom in here. We would have to do like rehearsals for like our show, like some little play or something we had to put on. I would be all creeped out because I'll be walking in the backstage, kind of trying to creep myself out. Like, is a Phantom in the Opera here? So I just remember that episode alone, just kind of just having the my fifth grade looked exactly like that setting kind of gave me a little extra chills at night sometimes to go back. So that was the one that kind of sometimes would keep me up. Just kind of moving on to some other things. One of your episodes going into your guys' podcast,
Oh,
the
sure.
recent one, was an episode or at least a blog where you talked about meeting R.L. Stein. So why don't you tell everybody about that meeting and how it went?
Well, I'd love for everyone to like listen to the episode, but the
Just a,
sparks.
a brief summary.
Oh yeah, this is like the spark notes
Mhm.
because it's kind of like it's a lot of feelings in that episode. So I found out that R.L. Stein was going to be at San Diego Comic Con, and I decided I need to meet him no matter what, just because you need to thank your heroes as much as you need to thank your parents and your teachers.
Mhm.
So I spent this huge journey because I live in Southern California, but to get to Comic Con and stuff it's a beast of its own nation.
Oh yeah.
So when I got there, it was about a 5 hour process to get into a lottery to meet R.L. Stein, and I was able to win this lottery. I had some friends that were going to help me, but they had to, they weren't able to help me. So it was basically my poopy luck against destiny, if you would say. And I'm able to get this ticket, and I go up to him, and I have my copy of Cuckoo Clock of Doom, the very first Goosebumps book that I bought, and I was so nervous that I wasn't gonna. I was just gonna simply just say thank you, and that would have been closure enough. But he stops when he starts writing his name in it, and he looks at it because the copy that I have is so super shredded that it like if he touched it wrong, it would have disintegrated. And he's like, "Oh man, this book has so much mileage to it," and that's when I just was like, I just need to thank you for all that you've done. You've introduced me to this like super spooky world, and it's helped me through some of like the hardest times of my life. And I just wanted to thank you. And it was really nice to meet him because he shook my hand, and we ended up talking for maybe like a minute, maybe two, compared to like people before him. Like he was signing their books, and then he just didn't look like he was super thrilled. But
Probably felt like a lifetime that 1 minute.
oh, it was like it was forever until it was like until like I had to take the photo, which I forgot I was supposed to take a photo with, and the person's like, "Oh yeah, I need to take your photo,"
You're
and
all
it's
zoned out.
oh yeah, I'm in like such a daze because the one thing I like to say on my show is that you should thank everyone and anyone that you've ever and that's really made a difference in your life, even if it's a simple email or message or even like a tweet, just because it's important because there's sometimes if you look at writers, they might be giving up on writing, like they haven't made a difference, or a podcaster, like we don't get enough, listenership, and it's all for nothing because we produce. It takes as you as a podcaster, it takes a while to produce like an episode, and getting
Hmm.
someone to say, "Hey, thanks, I think your episodes are funny," or "I love reading your books and stuff," makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, it being paid compliments that way actually does help.
It
It makes it all
helps.
worth it for sure.
Yeah. So I was able to meet him, and it was just one of the greatest experiences, just because you get a chance to say thank you, as well as just basically being the product of making a difference.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was super thankful. It sounded like it because, like you said, sometimes at Comic Cons, those authors or even celebrities to some degree, they kind of grow tired of it because he probably goes to a lot of them, or he probably he may not get as many of those "you changed my life" stories, more just sign my book so I can sell on eBay. Some sort of kind
Yeah,
of
it's pretty much
fans.
exactly. It was all a bunch of like guys in fedoras wearing like poster like bandoliers, and him sending copies of Man Thing, and they just didn't care. They just won the tickets, and they could sell them for a lot more now.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate because it does create some jaded celebrities or jaded authors. But sounded like you made his day. Sounded like you expressed your feelings properly, and he probably definitely enjoyed it. Especially you guys had that conversation without everybody else probably waiting in line, being jealous. You can
A
talk to
little
R.L.
bit.
Stein, talk to R.L. Stein for a little extra time. Well, cool, man. Well, everybody should go check out that episode. What episode is that one called for?
So that's episode 13, and it's just called Meeting R.L. Stein. It's a very, like, it's a good hefty episode, but this is like the Spark Notes. But you get into like the real craziness of Comic Con and what it really took to meet R.L. Stein because it's super duper crazy. Comic Con is most the best and the worst events I've ever been to in my life.
Yeah, it's one thing, it's on my bucket list, but the more I hear about it, the less I'm like intrigued to go see it just because of the infrastructure, how it's kind of set up. Not the, and I'm sure the hordes of people kind of make it hard too, but I feel like there's more cons and pros at this point in time.
Yeah, and the great thing about Comic Con is that they've slowly started to do events outside of the convention. Like afterwards, I went to the Westworld expansion they had for season two,
Hmm.
and I was blown away and how amazing that was. And it wasn't even in the convention; you had to walk to it.
Well, good, because yeah, that convention center I've heard is getting too small, and the
If you
areas are as well to house everybody.
if you want a really good convention, it's the sister convention to Comic Con, and that's just WonderCon. It's
Yeah,
a lot smaller, and you pretty much going to Comic Con.
yeah, I hear it's the same thing. Is that in the same spot or is that a different place?
No, for the last couple years, it's been in the Anaheim Convention Center, just
Okay,
across the street from Disneyland. But I've heard that they might be changing it again and bringing it back to San Francisco. But so far, the venue there is amazing in Anaheim.
definitely. Well, WonderCon might be the easier and sounds like better way to go for the con. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to see R.L. Stein in the next one. He'll be maybe more enthusiastic as well, getting some more love from fans. So cool, everyone go check out that episode on their podcast. But kind of moving into some fan related stuff, we had our Twitter poll and our Twitter shout outs for our favorite Goosebumps book. And for the Twitter poll, we had our top four that we had listed. We had One Day at Horrorland, Welcome to Camp Nightmare, The Haunted Mask, and Night of the Living Dummy. And the winner of the Twitter poll for there was Night of the Living Dummy with 38%, just beating out The Haunted Mask at 30%. So I
Wow.
think Night of the Living Dummy is a solid winner because that is nightmare inducing, just the title itself.
I've always loved puppets. I always, when I wanted to be younger, well, actually, wow, when I was younger, I wanted to be a puppeteer for the Jim Henson Company.
Oh, me too. I totally wanted, like, I wanted to be in the Jim Henson creation shop.
Oh yeah, no, for me it had always been wanting to be a puppeteer. Like I really, ever since I saw Labyrinth, it blew my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So like being able to experience that stuff, I was able to do some stuff for the Play Avenue Q for one of my college productions, and that was so much fun. But unfortunately, the age we are in now, puppetry is a lot harder to get into.
Yeah, just with technology, it's kind of like that Jurassic Park situation where they had all these great puppeteering they did for the monsters, the dinosaurs, but then technology came in like actually looks better with the computer, so we're gonna go with the computers half and half. So jobs started getting less frequent for puppeteers in that regard, and in general, especially like movies, the practical effects are varied, and for puppets like they used to use for Labyrinth or Dark Crystal are few and far between. But when they do use them, they look great. So you're like, why don't they do this more? But
Yeah.
it's one of those catch 22s, I guess. You never know. But Night of the Living Dummy, definitely the TV episode got me freaked out for sure. Just reading the book, I've always been scared of like dolls in that regard, especially during Poltergeist when the
The
clown, and I was
clown.
like, oh my god, did they know? Like somebody must know me and told them this is gonna scare the shit out of me because
They
it
took the
did.
two scariest things, clowns and
Yeah, so
dolls.
yeah, so the Night of the Living Dummy is, I think, is a fair and just Twitter poll winner. So that's our Twitter poll winner. Some Twitter shout outs, some people who gave us their top favorite Goosebumps books. We had Best Darn Diddley at Best Darn Diddley. Theirs was honorable mention to Werewolf of Fever Swamp and
That's
Night
a
in
good one.
Terror Tower and Deep Trouble. I didn't read Deep Trouble, but the Werewolf of Fever Swamp and Night Terror Tower for sure. So I do like those as honorable mentions. Well, did you read Deep Trouble? Was that one you got into?
Yeah, actually, I don't remember the book, but I certainly remember the TV episode
Mm-hmm.
because it has some amazing practical monster effects. But it's one of those where it's so good that I really wish that production company would have like made like the Shadow over Innsmouth movie. Like,
Yeah,
because they made some really great fish people, except I think they went on to make the live action Pinocchio movie, and that movie's really creepy.
I was gonna say that's creep style to the 10th degree on that one. Yeah, that Pinocchio. Whew.
Yeah, because there's like the part with like the main villain turns into basically Cthulhu. Like he's got like a
Mm-hmm.
octopus beard, or like I guess more like Davy Jones, but it's just super crazy and high octane insanity.
Yeah, so yeah, Deep Trouble. That was one I didn't really get into, but moving on to a couple other ones, we had Matthew M at 3CT affiliate, say Phantom of the Auditorium or of the Opera, which I said earlier was definitely that one that got me because of my fifth grade. We had Hipster Pop Geek at Stephen M. Keller, Monster Blood 2, or Attack of the Mutant. Attack of the Mutant's a solid one as well. I always like that
Yes.
one. And then my buddy Lindsey Pankhurst at Lindsey Pank, the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. That shit's set in my backyard. Yeah, he's out there in California.
Yeah, same.
And
I'm
yeah,
45 minutes away, and I have yet to see the abominable snowman of Pasadena, and I'm a little mad. I see people that are as big and hairy as him, but not him.
he
I try
could
to get
be
autographs all the time.
he could be disguised as one of those people. You never know.
You're
But
right.
yeah, he's doing his job. He's doing well. Hiding in captivity somehow, or not in captivity, but hiding in the open somewhere. But that was all the Twitter shout outs. So thanks everybody for throwing in their comments. So moving on to the next thing about the Goosebumps world. The Goosebumps universe is huge. We have the books, and we also have Goosebumps TV series. And so the TV series aired in the UK and in France on Fox Kids, and in the US and Fox Kids from 95 to about 98 with 4 seasons and 74 episodes. So before you got into watching an episode of Goosebumps, what was your routine? As a kid, what was your routine like to sit down and watch an episode? Did you get some Sunny Delight and the grilled cheese or something like that?
So the very first time I watched the Goosebumps TV show was actually at my uncle's house because I used to live in New Mexico. I actually came to visit him here in sunny California, and we went to like a block. Actually, it wasn't even a Blockbuster, so it was like a mom and pop video place that still had VHS copies, and they had the VHS copy of both uh, Night in Terror Tower and Stay Out of the Basement. And I remember watching them on his TV because we actually had to go out to a Goodwill to buy a VHS player. So we ended up watching it, and looking at it now, Stay Out of the Basement frightened me when the first time I saw it, just because like a plant dad man. But we reviewed the book, and I remember rewatching the show, and that is one of the worst episodes, the worst acting I've ever seen in my life. There's a line that we quote all the time on the show, and it's, "I'm not a mad scientist, I'm an angry scientist."
And that scared you as a kid?
Oh yeah, that line reading, it still horrifies me to this day. I wake up screaming, covered in sweat, like, am I an angry scientist?
Yeah, it happens more often than not. You'll go back and watch something and be like, "Wow, that is terrible," and I loved it then, and somehow still love it now.
Yes, and then much afterwards, my mom actually bought me this huge box set of the DVDs, and we were going on some road trip, and I binge just like before binge watching was a thing. I binge watched all of Goose, like a lot of the majority of the episodes on the way to, I believe, like to get through Texas. So it takes about 3 days to get through Texas.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I ended up watching on a little DVD player, and good times, good times.
Yeah, I with Goosebumps, it was Fox Kids on the afternoon right after school. So I'd get home, get me a big old Sunny D, like I was saying, and maybe a grilled cheese with like not real cheese, but like that
Oh,
Kraft
Kraft
singles
cheese, I
cheese.
mean the best cheese.
Yeah, the best cheese for sure. And then it just plopped right down in front of that TV. And I remember one of my favorite episodes, and probably one of the first ones I think that got me into it was the Welcome to Camp Nightmare, where the kids are at the camp and they're like people are starting to disappear, weird things are happening. It ends up, spoiler alert, finding out that the kid, that his parents are on this special mission. They're gonna go to Earth, so he hasn't been on Earth this whole time. I was like blown away by that
Yeah, it
whole
has like those
twist.
great Twilight Zone twists. I love about that episode too is their gym teacher turned drill sergeant that's telling him to
Yes.
murder kids. Like he's
he,
literally handing him an
he's
explosive
like, do
crossbow.
it,
Murder them. Do
do
it.
it. You're like, oh man, this is intense. So as one of the first episodes to see it, you can see why I was like hooked. I was like, this
It's
is
such a good
intense.
episode.
Yeah, and so just kind of moving into that, about the show. What episode? Because I know they didn't make an episode for every book. So what book would you want that they didn't make into an episode? Made
I
into an episode.
think the one I really wanted them to make into an episode, thinking of it now, is actually the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena.
Oh my God, that's totally what I have too.
Or if I wanted to switch it, I'd also want The Legend of the Lost Legend.
That's
That's
a good
another
one
really
too. Yeah, the Abominable Snowman, and I think we kind of got our thirst quenched with the movie. They that he was
yes.
like the main character, but for me, I imagine them using like a Sasquatch suit. They paint it white, and I just kind of wanted to see how they would have done that back in the mid 90s with the
Well, they
mid.
probably would have had the mask probably would have been an animatronic, and then
Mhm.
they would probably would use forced perspective to make him look larger against the children, and then they would probably just blow fake snow all over the place, or they would do the first part in, uh, I think Antarctica is where they go to,
Mhm.
and then they would just do the rest, and they would just film it in Canada because they never. I don't think they filmed a lot of the show in America. They filmed it all in Canada because all the
Mhm.
kids still say a boot.
Oh yeah, you can tell, and it has that Canadian tint to it. When you watch the shows, that UK Canadian tint. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
it's not quite. You can tell that it wasn't made with United States cameras or whatever. So,
The only
uh,
one that worked that way, that looked really great, was X-Files, because all the Washington D.C. scenes were actually filmed in Canada.
oh yeah, that's right. The truth is out there. It's still out there.
Yes, coming back this October. Actually,
With
not this October. They're coming back soon. They've renewed it.
oh man, with both David Duchovny and what's her name? I can forget her name.
Uh, Gillian Anderson.
There it
I
is.
was gonna say Karen Gian, but that would have been wrong.
That sounds right, but yeah, yep. She's the truest ginger, the ginger in all of our hearts.
She was like the well. Yeah, she's like one of the reasons why I wanted to be a mortician for the longest time.
Not the lady from Men in Black. She didn't. She's not
No,
the one.
no, because Dana Scully doesn't give a shit. There's like an episode where she's doing an autopsy and she's just pissed off at Mulder and she's just like throwing guts at. Oh my god, it's one of the best scenes. I can't remember what episode it is, but I just remember it. She's just like, truth's out there, ain't
Well,
believe her.
we'll have to check it. We'll have to find that episode because now I'm interested in seeing that situation. So moving on from the Goosebumps TV series to the recent Goosebumps movie that starred Jack Black, Dylan Minetti or Dylan Minette. I don't know what is
I was when we did it's Dylan Menette.
Minette. Okay, and Odeya Rush is the girl in there as well. That was released October 2015. Actually grossed $150 million at 84, which is not like in Hollywood standards super awesome, but it was enough that I think they're gonna make another one.
They've
Uh,
already announced Goosebumps 2 Horrorland
oh,
coming
ooh.
2018.
I thought it was gonna be Slappy's Revenge since they pretty much left that whole thing open. I felt like, or
Actually,
the
that's the
Invisible
name of
Boy.
so Slappy's Revenge is actually the name of the movie. If you get the book
Hmm.
for the movie, it's called Goosebumps Slappy's Revenge.
Nice. Well, Slappy was he was creepy for sure in this movie, and this movie actually was a lot better than I thought. I was not. I didn't give it any credit. I was just like, Jack Black, he's doing great. He does a lot of kids movie stuff. So Jack Black to me is like Tenacious D Jack Black, like on
Yes.
HBO. Like he was in The Jackal and like those weird like his
School of Rock,
School of Rock. He was in The Cable Guy. Like those. That's a Jack Black that I kind of grew up with.
Shallow Hal,
Yeah, Shallow Hell.
Waterworld, Never
So,
Ending Story 3.
oh man, the third, I forgot about that
Yeah,
one.
he's got the one who's got this huge unibrow, and
Yeah.
their gang is called the Nasties. So there's a part in it where the girl's like, "We have to defend against the Nasty," and I love that's like one of my favorite movies. Like Jack Black, if I ever meet you and I ever try to get your autograph and I thank you, I'm gonna be like, I really loved you either in Waterworld or Never Ending Story 3. Though, did you ever watch the one Jack Black movie? I'm surprised. Have you seen? It's called Be Kind and Rewind.
Yes, I have with Most Def.
Yes, it's one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I remember watching it when it first came out and I just loved it how they did the reenactments of the movies and just trying to it's kind of like crazy that that movie should be more relevant now just because of the movies that are the movie stores that are shutting down and think that kind of commentary on things that are happening. But yeah, that movie definitely kind of underrated. Not too many people talk about that very much.
It's
But
one of
yeah,
my favorite movies just because it's just about people making movies, as
mm-hmm.
well as I actually own that video camera.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
So
the
for
big
me, it
old
was
shoulder
just
camera.
the old shoulder camera because my grandparents had one of those that I used to make films on.
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, that's how we had to do it back in the day before we had the digital or phone cameras. It was the shoulder
I didn't get a
camera.
bone camera or a non-cassette camera until 2012.
Well, you made it. You made it. So, yeah, that's like I said, Jack Black. I grew up with him into all these other movies. So when he started doing these kids movies, I was like, okay, a lot of actors or a lot of people kind of do that. Once they have kids, they start doing a little bit different type of movies. But this movie, it's pretty funny. Like it was usually the funny stuff is at the beginning and then it trickles off, but it kind of stayed consistent. Like I would have a good laugh out loud moment every 5 to 10 minutes, either from Jack Black or from one of the characters. So I thought it was good. The use of all of the monsters, even though some of them I had to openly admit I've only read a good portion of the Goosebumps book, not all of them. So maybe some of the monsters I wasn't too familiar with, but like the Abominable Snowman, the Blob, Slappy, like those were like okay, I know exactly what's going on. So that kind of nostalgia factor kicked in, and Jack Black was good too. He put on a pretty solid performance as like this eccentric author who, is trying to protect everybody out, to protect the world by keeping them away from these monsters. So I thought the movie was pretty good. What were your thoughts when you first saw it?
So when I first saw it, I saw it at a drive-in movie theater and I was on a date.
Ooh.
I was still into Goosebumps, but not enough to where I wanted to do a podcast about it. And it's kind of seeing it in the big screen and also on a date with my gal at the time. was really interesting. So I had a different perception of it until many, I guess not many years later, but like recently when I had to rewatch it for a review. And there's things that I love about it and there's things that I hate about it, but the things it gets right are basically just taking the books and like, okay, they exist technically in our universe, so why don't we make it exist in their universe and we can run with that. I love that idea. I actually didn't hate Jack Black's performance, even though the one thing I couldn't stand was his like mid-Atlantic accent. Other than that,
Yeah.
I loved it. But there are some really annoying characters such as Champ and I guess Dylan's mom. I'm sorry, his name's Zack in this too. I'm sorry, my eyes just rolled in the back of my head. I have a really good brain. Um,
I
his
think
aunt
his
was
name
really
was. Yeah, I think
yeah,
his name was Zack. Yeah.
his name was Zack, yeah, and his aunt was just super annoying.
Yeah, the what's her name, Jillian from Workaholics, which she's good as like a supporting character in some movies, but this one she was just kind of
Like
over the top with her bedazzling and all that good stuff.
it works, but if she works really good in more adult content rather than a kids thing, because she just comes off very annoying in this. No
Yeah,
offense to her, she's really funny, except in this, she just was miscast.
well, it's weird as hell because I'm like in her age range and she's like the aunt now. Like she's the aunt in this movie. I'm like, oh my god, I've moved into that
Yeah.
demographic. I'm no longer the kid who's being taken care of. I'm in the
I'm the weird uncle now.
aunt uncle range. Yeah, so that was kind of yeah, a realization while watching the movie. I was like, great. And I feel old, even older now watching this movie. But she's good in short spurts. I just don't think. Yeah, I think they kind of gave her maybe too much to do sometimes in this movie. I'm
I
trying to
felt like
think.
a lot of the jokes really did hit with me. A lot of them were still like flatlined with me, but some of them that I love the most are the ones where like Jack Black is just I think he's just improvising. Like the one where he's in the supermarket and he starts spraying himself with the axe and it just keeps going on and
He's like,
on
it's
and on. It's
not
like
working. I
it's
gotta
not
go.
working. Like jokes like that or just jokes about making fun of Stephen King because I saw this really great article where uh R.L. Stein is the safety bra to Stephen King. And it totally clicks because it makes sense, and the whole movie is just Jack Black like making fun of Stephen King in the best way possible. I really wish they would have gotten Stephen King for this movie.
I mean, they probably should have lowered him with a kilo of cocaine. They probably would have got him.
No, he's super sober now.
Oh,
He's
he's super.
just
This is like night. This is Maximum Overdrive. Stephen King. I'm talking
oh yeah,
about.
no, he doesn't remember. Stephen King is on record. He doesn't remember writing like about most of his books in the '80s. He doesn't remember even writing Cujo.
I think he said didn't he. They said that he didn't remember directing Maximum
I can
Overdrive
see that.
either.
I can easily see that he doesn't remember. It was like let's get AC/DC. Let me just do a bump really
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, just do a bump. Oh, ACDC.
Oh,
And
AC/DC. That's
Emilio,
fine.
just keep running, Emilio. Just keep running.
My
Yeah.
favorite part of that movie is the kid with like the steamroller.
Hmm.
Oh my god, where he gets crushed. Oh my, I'm morbid, but like
That
yeah, I can
movie
see
is morbid.
that whole movie is morbid.
Yeah, so no, I can see what you're saying in regards to Jack Black kind of having his fun with Stephen King throughout the movie. Just like the pretentiousness too of sometimes that Stephen King can kind of give off a little bit when he does his interviews. But I mean, he deserves it. He's a great
I
author.
love
Don't
Stephen
get me
King. He's
wrong.
a really good guy.
Yeah,
Same
don't
as
get.
with R.L. Stein. He's one of the sweetest guys, and he's one of the funniest people. If you there's a Funny or Die video where he does like Goosebumps books that never got published, and they're all like adult titles, like Holy Smokes, My Grandma Tokes, and The Flatulent Ghost, and Ghost Pubes.
Those are pretty solid. I'd read Ghost Pubes.
My parents' divorce made me a horse. And
And
it's like, I
that
don't know
one
if
might hit too close to home for some people.
skeletons smoke, so why don't you?
To me, it's just spooky fun. But try telling that to those narcs who make all the decisions. They really hated my next book, Nudity, Drinking, and Casual Slug Use. But if kids don't learn about slug use from books, they'll just end up learning it on the streets. And those are just some of the rejected Goosebumps.
These are pretty. These are Funny or Die. You said those are.
It's Funny or Die, so he's just reading these books that he made himself. Because he's a really funny dude.
Well, I'm glad he could take him. He's not taking himself too seriously. They like in the movie, Jack Black just kind of does a pretty good performance. I think just I think overall, like authors who take themselves too seriously, kind of a thing. So the movie is good for me. They definitely left it open for a sequel. Would you see the sequel at this point in
Yes.
time? Yeah.
Oh, heavens, yes. I feel like a lot can change, but they did a good job with both the practical effects, because there were practical effects in
Hmm.
this movie, and the digital effects. The parts where all the monsters come up, a lot of them were actually practical effects, all makeup and done with prosthetics. Same as with Slappy was not I was surprised it wasn't CGI. He was actually a real puppet, and they actually had a puppeteer manning him.
Well, cool. That makes me even more creeped out.
There's like a part in the movie where the person that's voicing Slappy is just like he's driving the car and he's like, I can't slow down. And that's actually the ventriloquist saying it because he can't slow down. And they kept it in the movie.
Oh well, it worked for it worked for that moment in the movie. I'll tell them that it worked. It worked out. So yeah, I would see the sequel, depending on what character they may. I think the Invisible Boy possibly, or
It's all about Horrorland. So we have a lot.
Horrorland.
It's just going to be Disney World. They just put Horrorland.
I'll
They just
take it.
tack it. I'll tag.
I'll take it. Well, yeah. I thought the movie was pretty solid. I'd watch it again. I don't know if I'd own it, but I would definitely watch it again. But moving on to the last thing that I wanted to go over, we kind of
Oh, sure.
have lined up a few things we have here. Is our Goosebumps villain battle. So
Ooh.
Goosebumps is littered with all kinds of monsters, villains, and all kinds of scurvy out there. So we are gonna pick our top 5 villains that we would want on our battle squad. So, and we'll give a reason why we would want them on our battle squad. So we'll start with number 5. So my number 5 is going to be the aliens. Reason is they got the freezing technology. So if you things are getting out of hand, just call on the aliens to freeze everybody. Kind of pull a timeout like Zach Morris.
you
Timeout, and then
you know something funny for all your listeners out there?
what's that?
I'm named after Zach Morris.
What is your middle name Morris or is your last name Morris?
No, Zach.
The good old Zach attack.
He named me Zach because of Zach Morris.
Oh man, I'm surprised they didn't go middle name Zach Morris or middle name Zach Attack. So you're like,
No, if it was Zach Attack, I would just be like, "Whoa, radical!" And then I'd just be like grinding it on the Great Pyramids of Egypt.
Well, the aliens would be much better for your team since here's basically you are Zach. So you just call a timeout. They start freezing everybody, and take over the battle at that point. So I think the aliens would be a pretty solid crew. Will be your number 5 to have on.
I think my number 5 would have to be, if we're going with aliens, I'd have to go with the body squeezers. They're another race of aliens in the
Ooh.
Arlstein universe.
So
And
we're going extraterrestrial.
we're going extraterrestrial. If we're going head to head in an
Mhm.
intergalactic battle, because that book was a Goosebumps 2000 book that actually had two. It was a 2-part book.
2-parter. That was
Yeah,
rare.
that was the only one they ever did that was 2-parter. And it was like this huge intergalactic battle where these kids defeated these aliens that squeezed people until they popped.
Well, I think that's either while you're squeezing they could freeze them, or you'd be squeezed before you could do any. That's a tough battle. So
It's hard. It's hard.
I
Yeah.
think our 5s are pretty solid matchups. All right, so aliens, and then you said the other
The
aliens that
alien.
squeeze people.
Yeah.
Okay, so now my number 4, I'm going haunted car because you
Ooh,
gotta
that's good.
have a getaway vehicle, and you gotta have something that comes out of nowhere because they all are expecting human beings, monsters, aliens, but they're not expecting a car to come up and take out a whole crew of people. So you can have a haunted car come in and do like a little T-bone action or something like that, and then we all jump in and take off. So the haunted car I think is a good one because you got to have a getaway car. So what would your number 4 be?
I think of the Blob That Ate Everyone, just because it can expand
Hmm.
its body, and the car going into Jello is not a good thing.
No, it's not.
No,
And that
because
that
you
would
get
be
stuck, and then it gets super creepy unless it's like the Blob from the '80s, where you just start dissolving.
Now, I think the Blob would definitely take over the haunted car. The haunted car would be so angry it'd go full force into the blob, and then it just get lost into
You
the
get stuck.
middle. Yeah, and so
It'll
it's
be like fruit in a Jello salad. You just like
exactly
try
just
like
be
jiggling it, and it just stuck there.
hovering in there, all upset. So yeah, no, I think the blob's a good one. So we go haunted car and blob. My number 3 is I gotta have the werewolf of Fever Swamp, because every squad needs a werewolf. Like Wolfman's got nards.
Kick him in the nose! Kick him in the nose! He doesn't have nards! Do it! Do it! Wolfman's got nards!
So like as long as no one kicks him in the balls, then I think we're gonna be good.
I like you. I love that you just made a Monster Squad reference.
Oh man, Monster Squad is my jam. So werewolf and Fever Swamp, I think, is a good foe to have, because for scary factors too. You got to have someone who's going to start the battle with the werewolf crawl. Like, oh, it's time to fight now.
Ooh, for me, it would actually have to be. Ooh, this is a hard one. I would probably have to say Curly the skeleton, who is the mascot of Goosebumps before Slappy became Slappy.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Because he's super radical and he could probably skateboard away.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's got the cool factor. So everyone's gonna be like, man, I don't know whether to fight this guy or if I just want to hang out with him. Go to the movie, go chill out.
Like Curly and the werewolf would just like high five, like freeze frame high five. And like credits would roll.
Like Rocky and Apollo, like one of those running on the beach together.
Adrian.
it could happen. So instead of our number 3s fighting, they could become best friends. So that's a potential problem, but I think that's a good matchup for sure. So good. So now we're down to our top 2. Ooh. My number 2 is going to be the haunted mask, because you can throw that on anybody. Like in the book, you can throw it on your little sister, turn your little sister into a little demon. And what's scarier than your already crazy, obnoxious little sister into a scary demon, obnoxious, scary sister? So I think that could be some more of a mind game for the opponents.
Ooh, I'd have to actually say, for that one, that's a good one. I'd have to say the creeps from Calling All Creeps, because they're already monsters.
That's
and they disguise as kids. So if you put the haunted mask on and they go to their lizard form, or their true form, I don't know what would happen. Would the mask expand, or would it, stay the same?
She would have to like recruit. There's only one mask, and when you got the fleet of kids against the one mask, I think the haunted mask is overtaken in that battle.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, so no, it's a good one. I think the haunted mask, even though it's a solid foe for initial deception and maybe intimidation, it probably won't last long compared to the kids. So you're right, that's a good one. Now we're on to our number 1s. So my number 1, I'm going for the deception and the mental factor. I'm going Slappy the dummy, because nothing, like I said earlier, is scarier than a demon doll. And he would also be like our little Napoleon. He'd be leading. He'd be coming up with these crazy ideas. He's like the Joker. He comes up with all these weird ideas that this is how we're gonna mess with our opponent, and this is how we're gonna win. So I would trust Slappy if he's on my team. If he's not, I'm running away, or I'm trying to burn that little dummy.
Now I'm gonna have to do a little bit of a cop out and say my number 1 spooky Goosebumps villain would actually have to be R.L. Stine himself.
I somehow knew you might say it.
Oh, what's your counter?
I honestly, I had him on. I thought about putting him on the list as well, because he could be in. What was he in as the creepy foe? I can't remember.
He was the janitor in the Goosebumps movie.
That's right.
He used to introduce the Goosebumps TV show, and he also has a dummy of himself. They made for Night Living Dummy 3, as well as he has a haunted mask of himself.
And he's basically the creator of all this, and he's like their puppet master, I guess you could say.
Yes, actually, when they made the Goosebumps movie version of Slappy, they actually modeled it to resemble Jack Black.
Well, look, now I'm creeped out by sometimes real Jack Black and now a puppet version of Jack Black.
I can't tell the difference. They're scary.
If the puppet starts singing Tenacious D songs, I don't know what to do.
You know what I'd probably call KG.
That's you. Cage, get on in here.
And then they have like a puppet version of him too. And then I would be, oh my god, I'd be so happy
Yeah,
because
but
I love
that's
Tenacious D.
fucking teamwork.
And then they call him the roadie, and shit would
Oh,
go down.
I am the roadie. Oh, I could get them all, folks. I can sing all day. Don't worry. Yeah, I guess I didn't pay attention to that the resemblance of Slappy in the movie to Jack Black. But yeah, Slappy is a good one. R.L. Stein. Those two back and forth.
It
I
could
don't know.
tie.
It's like
It could tie.
it's like the creator and the creation versus each other. It's like, okay, well, who's gonna outsmart who? So I think we got pretty good teams so far. That if we went into battle, we would have some pretty good matches going, I think.
It's hard. It's really hard.
It is. So we have to see if it happens one day. Maybe in the next movie, maybe R.L. Stein is listening to us and we don't know it. And this is going to be the battle squads for the next movie. Who knows? So I'm excited to see what the next movie brings. I'm excited to keep watching the reruns of the TV series. I'm still collecting all the books because, of course, you know what moms do when you let stuff sit around. They give it away.
They throw it away.
They throw it away. So you got to re-up on your childhood. So I'm in the middle of that for multiple things, so it's still enjoyable though. Like I said, the covers have always been something I've enjoyed. So but Zach, I really appreciate you taking time to come on the podcast today. Tell everybody again where they can find your podcast, where they can follow you online, and when your next episode is going to drop.
Yeah, so we're actually a weekly podcast. We do book reviews every Wednesday. Sometimes on the weekends, we actually do a bonus episode. Say that me or Meg go to an event and we want to record something. We do that. We do little blog posts as well. Usually there's always at least one episode. If you want to follow our show, you can follow us at Nightmare on Fear Street. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and all the other amazing places. If you want to find our website, our web zone, as it will, that's ghoulishfancies.com. If you want to follow our Twitter, that's at Night Fear Street. Or if you want to follow me personally, that's at Suda41, SUDA. Thanks again for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun. Got me out of my coffin this morning and got some coffee, and here I am.
Very awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. Everybody check out their podcast. Some interesting stuff, especially the R.L. Stein meeting. That one's going to be a nice, awesome episode to check out. So, but thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of the Be Kind and Rewind podcast. Please subscribe, follow, like, and rate the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and YouTube. You can also find my episodes and other stellar podcasts on the Poop Culture Network website at poopculture.com. Again, that is poopculture.com. So thanks and be excellent to each other.
And stay spooky. Ooh. Bye.